Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be taking you guys through how I get my cinematic sequences, or how I shoot them, or what goes into making them look as good as they are, I hope. I don't know. So let's get into it. So the first thing that's really important, at least to me, is the equipment that I'm using, because a lot of it factors in how the video is gonna look. So for the camera that I'm using, I use the Sony a7 IV. I've been using it since mid-December last year. It does everything I needed to do, and it does it very well. The lens that I use for most of my cinematic sequences is my prime lens, my only prime lens, which is the Sony 50mm f1.8. It's an extremely cheap lens, but in terms of creating an image, it's actually really good. All the cinematic sequences I've made on any of my Sony cameras are primarily shot with that 50mm lens, and I'm using it right now to film this, so it's a pretty good lens. And then in front of that lens, I have a variable ND filter from Gobi. So yeah, that's pretty much the gear that I use. The only thing that I would probably add to that is maybe a Pro Mist filter, so that I can have more of the bloom in the highlights, because I think that looks more cinematic, especially for a shot like this. I feel like I've made it softer and less contrasty, but you know, I don't have one, so I'm working with what I have. So yeah, that's the gear that I use. On to the other stuff. So these are the settings that I use to shoot cinematic sequences, and first thing I'm going to talk about is the frame rates. Specifically for getting like close-up shots of things, I either use 4K 60 frames or I use 1080p 120 frames. This allows me to slow down the footage in post so it can have that creamy, dreamy look, and yeah, that's pretty much the setting I use for that. I use a flat picture profile, and this allows me to grade with as much information as I can out of the camera. There's no colors baked in, so you can push and pull things a bit more than you would if you didn't shoot flat. So the picture profile I use on the a7 IV is of course S-Log3. So yeah, that's the picture profile I use, and I also shoot in 422 10-bit. This is a very wide color space, so it allows me to use S-Log3 without seeing any banding or any artifacts in extreme color situations, and it just retains a lot more color information that looks good. So yeah, 42 10-bit. So I also make sure that I have stabilization on the camera, because Sony lenses tend to not have optic image stabilization. So I just have IBIS on, and for a lot of the shots in my recent cinematic that I posted on TikTok, I had active image stabilization on, which is one of the newer features in these newer Sony bodies, which it adds an extra bit of stabilization on top of the regular in-body image stabilization. So those are the camera settings that I use to get cinematic shots. So these are the things I consider when I'm going out to shoot a cinematic sequence, and just stuff that I have in mind when I want to go out and create something. So the first thing I do is I look for small things that have a lot of detail, whether it's something that has textures, patterns, color, and if something is also in motion, because those are the things that will give your image interest. Because if it's just like a flat scene where nothing is moving, the colors are not interesting, then it's just not gonna look good. Another really big thing that I do is I look for things that have depth, and this basically means that if there's something in front of it, something behind it, and it's like in the middle of those two things. That's what I consider whenever I'm trying to shoot these sequences. So yeah. And so last thing I want to talk about is my editing process, which usually takes place over there. But yeah, I think it revolves around three main important things. And the first one is music selection, the second one is color grading, and the last one is export settings. So I'm going to touch on color grading by itself, but for my music selection, what I basically do whenever I'm browsing any social media platform like Instagram Reels or TikTok, I'm often looking for kinds of music that are going to like reflect the kind of cinematic sound to create. So whether it's something moody, whether it's something inspirational or grand, I'm always saving audios that I feel like can match the kinds of shots that I'm thinking of in my mind, of places that I'm either in regularly or that I might go to one day or something like that. If not that, then I do just browse for hours on end on YouTube audio library or something else for songs that match the kind of mood that I'm going for. So that's how I tackle the music. As for my export settings, I basically have a bunch of things. I think I'm just gonna flash through the screen, not really talk about too much, because explaining the technical aspect of them will take very long. But yeah, I'm just gonna have a screenshot of each element that I have set, because I have presets now for my exports that I just select the preset and it rolls out of Premiere without me having to change anything. So guys, the last thing I do when I'm creating cinematic shots is I color grade. That's before exporting, of course. So I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a colorist. I'm not a trained colorist by any standard. So what works for me, I have two methods. The first method is a paid for plugin that's called Film Convert. Now it's called Film Convert Nitrate. It's a paid plugin. It usually costs $175, which is a lot of money for a plugin. What it does basically is it applies film emulation onto your camera's specific color profile. So it works really well because it's tailored to your specific camera rather than a lot on Lumetri, which is tailored for a different camera, and then you have to adjust it to your camera. But that brings me to my second point of how I color grade, and that's using Lumetri and LUTs. I basically just apply a S-Log3 to Rec 709 conversion LUT, and this turns my footage from being flat to having standard colors. And then I go to the Creatives tab in Lumetri and I apply a LUT, a creative LUT. And where I get these LUTs, mostly it's just random searches online, and I'm always downloading these assets and just building a library of assets that I can just use on my own videos. I also just go to Google and type in, X camera free LUTs. Again, I get many because a lot of them don't necessarily work with the footage that you have, or they're not designed for the camera that you have or for the log profile that you have, because all S-Log3 profiles are not made the same. All S-Log2 HLG profiles, they're not all made the same, so you might want to browse a few websites, pick out a lot that works for you. Just keep trying and seeing which ones look good, and yeah, you'll figure it out. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and to all my TikTok followers, because we've kind of exploded off two videos, two cinematic videos I've posted. To anyone that commented, liked, shared, followed, you guys are amazing. I really appreciate you guys. You may not realize it, but you are doing the most in pushing me to create more content. So yeah, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.